3 steps to make yourself sanction-proof. Now, over the last 2 weeks, the world has realized that your money is not safe. In Canada, the government froze $9 million in donations meant for the Freedom Convoy. The government also froze individual bank accounts, including reports of a single mother who donated $50 and had all her accounts shut down. But it's not just the Canadian truckers and their supporters who need to worry. There are 3 global superpowers in the world today armed with nuclear weapons: China, Russia, and the US. One of the 3, Russia, a sovereign nation with nukes, just had their bank account reserves frozen. Now, in this video, I'm going to break down how the financial system has become weaponized, how what has happened to people in Canada and nations like Russia could easily happen to you, why you might be more at risk than you think, and most importantly, what you need to do to protect yourself before it's too late. So let's go. All right, welcome back. If you are new to the channel, my name is Mark Moss, and I make these videos to change the way you think about money because almost everything you have learned is wrong. Like, if you're a sovereign nation like Russia, that's your money in the bank is your money. Maybe you're just realizing that that is completely wrong. Now, I'm going to talk about 3 things that you can do to sanction-proof your life. I'm going to give you some actual things that you can do right now when you're done watching this video. Now, there's a lot of things that you should be doing to protect your financial sovereignty. Financial payments sit at the base of that. It's also time to think about health as an asset. It's time to think about your freedom as an asset, which is why I've put together a special live event. It's the 2nd annual Market Disruptors Live. There's a link down below. I am going to be presenting about financial sovereignty. I have about 15 of the top experts in the world. They're going to answer 2 questions. 1, what do they think is going to happen over the next couple of years? And most importantly, what you should be doing about it to build, grow, and protect your wealth and your personal freedom. All right, there's no event in the world like this, marketdisruptorslive.com. There's a link down below. I hope to see you there. All right, now let's go ahead and jump right in. We are talking about sanctions. We are talking about how to protect your money, because without the freedom to transact, there is no freedom at all. So if I have the freedom of speech, but I don't have money to buy a computer to put stuff online, I don't have money for pamphlets, I don't have speech. If there's freedom to assemble and I don't have money to put gas in my car or buy a bus ticket, I don't have freedom to assemble. There is no freedom without the ability to transact, and so that brings us to sanctions. All right, so sanctions, of course, you've heard about it. You've heard a lot about it recently because they are being used, but it's really been this foreign policy tool, or I should say it's a way to regulate or try to control these foreigners. And of course, like I said, you impose them. You're imposing sanctions. So where did that word even come from? A little bit of historical concept. It's kind of a newish word on an ancient concept. And so it's really blockades and embargoes. You probably heard that back in the old days. Blockade somebody in, don't allow anybody in and out. It's been replaced by modern economic punishment, if you will. A sanction has twin meanings, it says. So if as a verb, to sanction is to approve or permit something, as a verb. As a noun, a sanction is a penalty imposed for breaking the law or other rule, as in military action, in replace for military action. And really the way that they impose these sanctions is with the SWIFT network. You've probably heard about that. The SWIFT network is a way that money is sent out all around the world. If you've ever been to the bank and you send out a wire transfer, then you know what the SWIFT is. It's the way that money moves around the world. And we can see that SWIFT is actually an organization that's overseen by the G10 central banks. So G10, that's the 10 biggest countries in the world, by their central banks: Belgium, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Netherlands, Great Britain, and the United States, Switzerland, and Sweden. Oh, and the ECB, the European Central Bank. They all control that SWIFT network. So it's not just the United States, but basically all the, or pretty much, not all, but pretty much all the transactions of the financial world move through it on a regular basis. As a matter of fact, 9.5 billion financial messages, they called it, per year, about 44 million per day. 44 million financial messages are sent over the SWIFT network every single day. And it was created in 1973, interesting, about 2 years after we got off of the gold standard. There was about 239 banks in at the time. Today there's well over 1,000, I think almost 1,200 banks that are in that. But like I said, that's what they use for sanctions, and it's really become a weapon. It's become a weapon. I guess it's a better alternative than going to war, but maybe it can cause wars. Now, we've seen it used many times. So Iran in 2012 was sanctioned very, very difficult, or I should say very hard, because of their nuclear weapons. They were trying to shut down their nuclear enrichment programs. They didn't have nuclear weapons. And so they basically said, you know, sanctions, you're cut off from the financial world. Because of that, Iran lost about half of its oil exports, because if it wasn't allowed to get money, as I say all the time, that there is no freedom without the freedom to transact. And so because they couldn't transact, they didn't have oil exports. They lost about 30% of their trade because of that. Of course, now we're seeing that Russia is being threatened by an entire SWIFT ban, but it actually started all the way back here in 2014 when Russia invaded Crimea. When it went after Ukraine the first time in 2014 is really where it started. So you can see in 2014 there was sanctions on Russia for a couple ways. Overall, 3 types of sanctions were imposed back then. A ban on provision of technology for oil and gas exploration, which of course Russia's main export is energy. A ban on provision of credits to Russian oil companies and state banks. So again, hitting them in their energy sector. And then also travel restrictions on the influential citizens close to President Putin at the time. Now, what happens with anything like war is escalation. So if I push you, you punch me, I get a knife, you get a gun, and things escalate very quickly, and that's exactly what's happened. And so Russia didn't like that, of course, and so they responded with a total ban on food and imports from the European Union, the United States, Norway, Canada, and Australia. You sanction me, I'll sanction you, I guess is what they were basically saying. Now, they have become the main weapon of choice. Here is a U.S. Representative Brad Sherman from the great state of California explaining why they don't want Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies to be used, because it undermines the nation's ability to sanction. Let's hear from Brad.
I look for colleagues to join with me in introducing a bill to outlaw cryptocurrency purchases by Americans, so that we nip this in the bud, in part because an awful lot of our international power comes from the fact that the dollar is the standard unit of international finance and transactions. Clearing through the New York Fed is critical for major oil and other transactions. And it is the announced purpose of the supporters of cryptocurrency to take that power away from us, to put us in a position where the most significant sanctions we have on Iran, for example, would become irrelevant. So whether it is to disempower our foreign policy, our tax collection enforcement, or our traditional law enforcement, the purposes of cryptocurrency, the advantage it has over sovereign currency, is solely to aid in the disempowerment of the United States and the rule of law.
Okay, so imagine if you're a nation listening to that. So he's saying, hey, we need to outlaw Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies because it takes away our ability to sanction them. And other nations are like, oh, that takes away their ability to sanction us? We should probably adopt it. We should probably push that forward. Pretty interesting, right? Now, Brad Sherman is up for re-election. He is being challenged by Erica Rhodes. I had her on my radio show recently. See if we can get that link down below if you want to check out that. But we try to get Brad Sherman out. It'd be pretty cool. Now back to Russia. 2022 Russia sanctions. It's no surprise, right? We don't want to go to war, so we'll just sanction them. We'll continue to take away their access to banking, but it's only been select. Select Russian banks are the ones being sanctioned. And who are they being sanctioned by? Well, they're being sanctioned by most of the world. Here we have North America doing sanctions, of course, Australia down here, and all of Western Europe. They're the ones sanctioning. The one big missing one is, what about China? What's China doing? Of course, China's been pretty quiet on this. Maybe it's because they are doing business with them, but we'll get back to that in a minute. But here we can see the EU, US, and UK pledged to remove selected Russian banks from the SWIFT system. Why is it only selected? We'll take a look at that. They block selected Russian banks with quote-unquote restrictive measures, as they say. And we can see here, that the fine print of the sanctions was still being ironed out, officials said, as they work to limit the impact of the restrictions on other economies and European purchases of Russian energy. Let me read that again. As they work to limit the impact of the restrictions. So they're going to do something. I made a video, I think about 6 weeks ago, see if we can link that right here, where I predicted that Russia would in fact invade Ukraine, and the U.S. would slap some sanctions on them, but it really would be a big nothing. They would do it just to kind of save some face. 6 weeks ago I said that. Here we have it. They're going to slap sanctions, but to limit the impact of restrictions. So they're going to slap them, but they don't want to do too much because mainly they don't want to damage the economy and energy. That's the key piece. That's why it's very minimal. So they really can't do a whole lot. And why do we really need to limit? It's because the amount of energy that is being dependent on for the European continent. So they really need Russia, and they can't afford to sanction them too hard. All right, so they want to limit the impact of the sanctions because the rest of the world is so dependent on that. So there's global implications of this. Of course, the entire world has become globalized, and so everything starts to tug and pull on each other. Now, what we've seen is we have over 100,000 Germans in the street protesting because throughout Germany, as I've been talking about for a while, Germany has decided to self-inflict their own wounds. They've decided to shut off all of their nuclear facilities. Of course, Germany has seen their electricity prices shoot sky high over the last decade, and they have been reliant on Russia. There's a new pipeline coming down, Nord Stream 2, coming down to deliver that natural gas to them. And the Germans, 100,000, are rallying for Ukraine in the streets, saying, we don't want that energy, right? Well, they kind of need it. But I guess the Germans, if that's what they want, that's what they get. And so here we can see that Germany suspends Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline. Well, big win. We shut down the gas pipeline from Russia, but it's going to have massive implications because now they don't have natural gas. Without natural gas, you don't get CO2, and you don't get CO2 is used for food processing. You don't get fertilizer. Fertilizer is made to grow food. Without those things, it doesn't work too good. And of course, with shutting down the energy, with cracking down on the energy, what's going to happen? Supply and demand. If you shut down supply, but you still have the same demand, what do you think happens? Well, we get not new all-time high, but almost new all-time high. Gas or oil's over $100 a barrel. Hasn't been that high since 2014. It's cranking up. Now, when oil goes up, when energy goes up, everything goes up. Those clothes at the store, they had to be driven there or flown there. Oh, that food at the restaurant, that had to be driven there. The employees had to drive their car there. Everything requires energy, so when you see it shoot sky high like that, everything goes back up. Now, this is affecting all of Europe. I did a video, it's probably been 6 months ago, I talked about the energy crisis that was coming to Europe. We'll go ahead and link that up here. And we saw natural gas prices had gone up by over 1,000%. Of course, they started to come back down, and look at that right there. As a matter of fact, Europe's gas prices are up over 62% just since this broke out right now. It's a big problem for everybody over there. And it's not just energy. As a matter of fact, we have wheat, we have grain, we have food. Remember, we need the natural gas to grow the food, and they have the natural gas, and they also have the food, and they're shipping it out all around the world. We can see here that wheat prices, food, have reached their highest level since 2012. Now, when I've studied history, and you know I love to go study history, when you look back of the catalyst for almost every revolution that we had, it's when people can't afford to eat, when people can't eat, and that's energy, and that's wheat, that's food. So it's a big problem that is happening right now, which is part of the reason why they want to really limit the amount of sanctions that they have. Now, there's a massive impact, an economic impact that you need to be aware of. Of course, as I said, right, there's massive sanctions coming. As a matter of fact, the West takes aim at Russian central bank's reserves, threatening a blow to the economy. So we saw that in Canada, the truckers and people who donated to the truckers had their accounts frozen, got kicked out of the financial system. Now we have a sovereign nation, one of three global superpowers, Russia, US, and China. One of three with nukes, and they just got their bank accounts frozen. Pretty big deal. Putin says he's kind of like an animal backed up against a cage. He's now threatening nuclear action, which is pretty bad. Russia's central bank had over $640 billion in foreign exchange reserves as of February 18th, held in the computers of Western central banks in cities such as New York, London, and Frankfurt. Freeze with a click of a button, but you know, I think Russia's been getting ready for this a long time. As a matter of fact, Russia for the first time holds more gold than US dollars. They have $583 billion in reserves. Now, I brought this chart up before a few weeks ago. You've probably seen this. So this is Russia has been de-dollarizing. They've been getting rid of all their dollars as fast as they can, and they've been adding as much gold as they possibly can. So they're like, okay, you can go ahead and freeze our dollars, but we have a bunch of gold. And not only do we have a bunch of gold, remember, gold, dollars, and even Bitcoin, they're mediums of exchange. Real wealth is goods and services. They have the energy, they have the oil, they have the natural gas, they have the wheat. And so they can transact in gold, and they have, of course, they have the wheat and they have the natural gas. We can see here that inflation in Russia is soaring sky high. As a matter of fact, look at that red candle. And what's happening because of that is people all throughout Russia are lining up at the banks trying to get their money out as fast as they can before it runs dry. All right, so evading sanctions. Let's talk about this. First, we'll talk about Russia, and then we're going to talk about how I can become sanction-proof. You need to become sanction-proof before the sanctions come against you. Before the truckers in Canada had their bank accounts frozen, they need to be sanction-proof. Before Russia faced sanctions, they needed to dump the dollars and add gold, which they've been doing. All right, so like I said, Russia has been stockpiling gold. They've been dumping US dollars. Again, here's another chart to show you this. Treasury holdings are down almost 90%, while gold holdings are up almost 170%, which is a pretty big deal. We can see that also Russia and China have a currency swap agreement. And what they've done is China has basically agreed to buy all their natural gas outside of dollars. So they've set these things up in advance. We can see here on that deal right here, Russia and China agreed to a 30-year gas deal via a new pipeline that's going to be settled in euros. And of course, China, they're a major player, right? So all the major countries of the world have their own currencies, and the IMF creates a basket of those currencies into something called SDRs. Those are special drawing rights. Well, what we saw is that China wanted to be added into that basket. They weren't in there for a long period of time, and yet here they are. They've been added into the basket, challenging the reserve currencies of the world, or at least being added or excluding them. All right, so for you, what does this mean for you? What does this mean for me? Remember, the time to become sanction-proof is before the sanctions are imposed on you. The time to dig your well is before you're thirsty. So let me break this down. So first off, as I said, Canada has sanctioned their citizens. Who would have ever thought that a legally allowed protest, peaceful protest, and a regular GoFundMe campaign that has been totally legal all the time, who would have thought that donating $50 to that could get you kicked out of the financial system? Well, it happened. It happened. Who would have thought that this problem would happen with Russia? I mean, maybe some of you would have thought that, but did you know that Russia is now saying that they may be confiscating citizens' deposits? They said if there's enough sanctions against them, they will actually seize their deposits, their citizens' deposits. No different than happened in 1933 in the US, happened in 2013 in Cyprus, happened in 2016 in Greece, it's happened in Venezuela, it's happened in Lebanon, on and on and on. And so you want to store some of your money in cash outside the banks. Now, you need to figure out how much you want to save, but as we saw in that video, people are lined up in Russia trying to get their money out of the banks, and there's none. We saw in Canada for the last 2 weeks, people going to the banks to get their cash. and there was none. So the time to get the money out is before you need it, not when it's too late. Also, an even better way is to store your money in Bitcoin off the exchanges or gold. So Russia, they may have got their bank accounts frozen, but they still have the gold. Another way to do it is to store gold in your own vault, or you can store in Bitcoin, but on your own off the exchanges. Now, what do you do with that Bitcoin? Well, there's peer-to-peer markets. So let's say that you're in Canada and you're a trucker or somebody that was involved in that and you got your bank accounts frozen and somebody gave you Bitcoin. What do you do with it? You can't go turn it back into fiat currency. Well, there's a couple things you can do. You can use a peer-to-peer market. You can't turn it back in because your bank accounts are shut down. So you can use a website called HODL, H-O-D-L, and it's a peer-to-peer marketplace, and they'll match you up with other people who want to buy and sell. So if I was given some Bitcoin and now my bank account's shut down, I could go find somebody and I could sell them my Bitcoin for cash. That's one way, or vice versa. There's another one called Bisq. Bisq is a decentralized platform that also allows for this peer-to-peer marketplace to happen. You can also find these platforms called Bitrefill. So in El Salvador and nations in Africa, where they get Bitcoin, again, they can't convert it back into their local currency. They can exchange it. They can find people to sell them gift cards, Visa gift cards, all types of gift cards, also Paxful. Paxful is another one. And so I can exchange my Bitcoin for airlines. I can exchange it for Airbnbs. I can exchange it for Home Depot or Lowe's. I can exchange it for, like I said, even Visa gift cards. And so here's 4 different peer-to-peer marketplaces. No matter where you're at in the world, you can find a way to exchange your Bitcoin that you keep off the exchange that they can't get. If you are leaving Ukraine, running for your life, you can't really carry your gold with you, and you can't take the money in the bank. But you can take your Bitcoin, and when you get there, you can use one of these services to get everything that you need, change it back into fiat currency, or actually get the goods and service that you need. That is how you become sanction-proof. What do you think about that? Let me know down below. Also, as I said at the beginning of the video, I am having a live event in Dallas, May 6th through 8th, to talk about this financial sovereignty, about building your finances, build, grow, and protect your wealth to have more freedom. Your freedom's an asset, your health is an asset. We're going to have 15 speakers, the best in the world, talking about the macro environment, talking about stock market, bond market, cryptocurrencies, talking about Plan B living, and so much more. There's a link down below. Come hang out with me, hang out with some of my best friends, talking about financial sovereignty, the toolkit that you need to survive what's going to happen over the next couple of years. There's a link down below. As always, leave me a comment and let me know what you think. Are you taking steps to sanction-proof your life, or are you not even worried about it? Say, I'm not worried, or I'm taking steps. One or the other. I'd love to hear from you down below. Of course, as always, give me a thumbs up on this video if you like it. If you don't like the video, that's okay. Give me a thumbs down. But either way, at least leave me a comment and let me know what you think. And that's what I got for you today. All right, to your success. I'm out.